Good morning, everyone. Am I audible to all of you? A very good morning to the classes of international relations. And yesterday we had been discussing Indo-Pakistan relationship, and we had completed that discussion. Good morning, Dhananjay. Now we'll be talking about Indo-China relationship. We'll be starting with it. Good morning, Sivangi. Good morning, Ravi. Good morning, everyone. So I hope you have revised the things that whatever we have discussed till date. And I expect you, all of you, to practice some of the diagrams as well. And I'm very sure some of you must have attempted the questions as well, like we have discussed. Good morning, Subham. Everyone join in. Shivam, the problem is like with only few students. Most of the students are comfortable with the volume, I guess. But there isn't any issue with rest of the students, I guess. Yeah, Amit, Indo-Pakistan is complete. Most of the important aspects we have seen. Some of the aspects we'll be seeing. Good morning, Sazil. Some of the aspects definitely we'll be looking at when we'll be discussing some regional groups. Like I said, Shivam, I guess there is some problem with your device. Because from here I had kept it at maximum. And maybe I'll have to, if more people are finding it difficult, then I'll be discussing this thing with the technical support, and I'll take care of it. So like we said, India-Pak relationship will again discuss from the perspectives that are different from some regional groupings at the international level. What we are doing, we'll be doing that. Yeah, good morning, Asu. So everyone be ready with your notes and your pen. Yeah, Asu, this is the case. I think Shivam is finding it difficult because there is some problem with his system. Please, Shivam, you need to check your system. Rest of the people are easily listening to what I am speaking. ठीक है, तो अभी हम लोग स्टार्ट करने वाले हैं इंडो चाइना रिलेशंस. Most of the part. Yeah, good morning everyone. Karunesh, Suman, Asu, good morning. So we are starting with a very important relationship, Indo-China relationship. Like we had seen with the case of Pakistan, that the border issues are so important in these relationships that rest of the relationship, even though they are developing, but are not reaching its true potential. In fact, good morning, Arpana. So in fact, these countries like Pakistan and China, they are not allowing India to create a conducive environment for mutual growth of the countries. So sabhi ko pata hai, if we talk about Indo-China, this relationship moved from Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai to Chinese products Bye. This relation has shifted from Bhai to Bye. But the potential was that these two countries, these two colonial twins, often you'll see this term, the two countries were referred many a times as colonial twins, because both these neighbors were under some other countries rule and were colonies which were serving the interest of some other countries. So looking at the history, the colonial history, it was very much expected that these two countries will have a good relationship. दोनों के बीच क्या है, संबंध अच्छे होने चाहिए थे. But what we see from the inception, from the time when these two countries were independent, initially it seemed that the things are going well for few years only, and we cannot call that a long period, not even for 2-3 years. And thereafter, things started taking ugly turn, and the relationship has taken a jolt. Yeah, Devam, it is not a very important news if we look at the things, whatever is happening. Even if Oli loses the confidence, some other government comes, still the sentiments in China at this point in time is like whatever government is formed there, the Nepalese government is going to go against India in many of the issues. Okay? Because our condition is like there was an opportunity, window of opportunity when India could have helped our neighboring nations with vaccinations and things could have improved. But because of the pandemic taking an ugly turn in India only, we are not in a position to help much. Though we had given some of vaccination and medical supplies previously, but at this point in time, they are hit hard by COVID. But we cannot do much about it. Okay? So these news are definitely, you need to have a look at it, but this changing governments is not important when it comes to small neighbors until and unless something big is happening, like happened in Maldives. There was an explosion, and the previous president and the present speaker of Maldives was targeted. So these kind of news are important because it concerns our security. Okay. So we are talking about Indo-China relationship, and we are talking about the colonial twins and the relationship that has shifted from bhai to bye. And why it happened, you know, the present context where we are having some of the border disputes. So still as we had developed a practice of looking at some of the historical engagements, I'll start with there only. I'll not be going much in detail of this relationship only because most part of this chronological history we have covered while talking about the terms of some of the prime ministers of our country. When we were talking about shaping of the foreign policy during the tenures of our prime minister, but still we'll be looking at some of the important events so that you get a good revision. And we'll be looking at the problem areas, the areas where we are cooperating. We'll be looking at all the aspects of Indo-China relationship. So let's start with the time 1950. This is the year when India and China established their diplomatic relationships on 1st April 1950. Diplomatic relations between these two countries were established. This was a time of high hopes. Both the countries became independent. And there was high expectation from this friendship. And it was also important because India was the first non-socialist country which recognized China. India was first non-socialist country which recognized China. Most of the countries were favoring Russia at that point in time. It was an era of Cold War. And India came forward because we had a declared policy of being non-aligned. So we wanted to keep good relations with our neighbor. And for that, we made sure that we are offering support to our neighbor in getting recognition in the world arena. But this neighbor did not reciprocate the friendship that India had offered. As soon as 1950 only, when these diplomatic relationships were established, they started making claims over some parts of Aksai Chin and of course Arunachal Pradesh as well. And as things moved forward, the non-alignment meets the punch seal. These were the things which actually conveyed to China that we are here for friendship, but they were not ready. And of course, we know 1962, Indo-China war happened, and this relationship deteriorated. Relationship deteriorated, and China started using Pakistan as a proxy against India. Pakistan as a proxy against India. Okay. At that point in time, India felt very lonely. Why? Because most of our neighbors were trying to destabilize our country. And of course, the mightiest country of the world, USA, was against India because we haven't given support to it. And Russia was not very much interested in meddling with the skirmishes between some of the countries because it was trying to show itself as a neutral country to the rest of the world. But it was a mighty country, and we have seen that Russia came to our rescue many a times. So these things happened, and for many years, there were no formal relationship between India and China, though we had informal dialogues some of the times. But it was only in 1976 that India and China decided to restore the relationship, first we have to see 1976. India, China restored okay, this was the year when ambassadors were sent to the respective countries, and this bilateral relationship was again established. Okay, and bilateral relationship was restored. But this wasn't sufficient. Still, some of the skirmishes were happening in the borders. Soldiers were getting killed. Things were not going well. In fact, in 1986, there was a situation when it looked like there can be another war. But like we have seen in Galwan, something like that happened. We lost soldiers on both the sides. And it was the time China also realized that it is not easy now to tackle India with might and with force. So informally, in 1988, Rajiv Gandhi tried to establish good relationship with the Chinese counterpart. And process of normalization was started by him. In 1988, process of normalization started by a former Prime Minister, late Rajiv Gandhi. He was a progressive man. He was aware that if the relationship between the two neighbors remains sour, then we both will not be developing. And somehow this was also understood by the Chinese counterpart, and they started talking about some good relationship between these two countries. They talked about a long-term solution for border disputes. The dialogues started, some of the channels were established, but unfortunately Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated and he could not do much about this relationship. But still, as the seeds of friendship were sown, so the very next government tried to establish this relationship. Okay, so we had not seen any official visits from both the countries since 1950s. So in 1992, India decided to send its president to visit China. So it was an important event because for almost 42 years, there were no official visits from these countries. So our president, R. Venkatraman, visited China. Our president, a first since the bilateral ties were established. So it was a big movement. Both the countries celebrated this thing, and there was optimism that this relationship is going to improve, and of course will be at peace with our neighbor. So some of the confidence building measures started and things moved in positive direction, and it happened so the positivity was reflected in the visit of Chinese premier in 1996. So in next 4 years, the circumstances were in favor of building the relationship to the next level. दोनों को क्या चाहिए था? अच्छे relationship establish हो जाएं. तो अब इसको करने के लिए क्या है? पहले इंडिया ने पहल ली. राजीव गांधी started the dialogue process. Our president Venkatraman visited, and so Chinese President Jiang Zemin visited India. So this was an important year. China showed that they are reciprocating the things. And in the meanwhile, in 1992 to 1996, some of the military arrangement was made. It was decided that there will be ceasefire and mostly no arms and ammunition shall be used in the border areas. So these things were happening, and it was also first visit of head of state of China since the bilateral ties were established. So it was going good. Till 1996, we can say that both the countries were trying to improve some of the relationship. And here, the statement was very clear when he visited in 1996. He said that it is important that we establish some confidence building measures in the military field. Talked about confidence building measures in the field of military. So it was an important step at this point in time. There was hopes that the border issues will be resolved. But like we know, there was nuclear test by India and apprehensions increased. But still somehow we managed to establish this relationship. Things kept on going in the same mode. And in 2000 we celebrated 2000. Both the countries celebrated 50th anniversary of bilateral relations. And such events do not give any impetus to countries like relationship in countries like these. China and Pakistan are like a country who will come to you, visit you, talk about good things, and the very next day they'll do something which will harm the country. So they are non-reliable. So things kept on going like this only. In 2010 they celebrated again 60 years of relationship, and that is not much important. All the events that happened in the meanwhile, in Kargil war, we definitely know that China was supporting Pakistan. In fact, in international forums as well, it did not try to vote in favor of India. It was the only country which didn't even ask Pakistan to leave the place. Rest of the countries did that thing, at least half-heartedly, but China was silent. And 2011, they started celebrating some of the years, some of the events. They declared 2011 as a year of India-China exchange. Basically, year of India-China exchange. Yeah, Ravi, Atal Bihari Vajpayee also took initiatives, but of course we know that not very major events took place. So we are talking about some of the things which had long-term implications in this relationship. So year of India-China exchange was declared. So people-to-people contact and cultural exchange was focused. India agreed to include Chinese or the Mandarin language in its some of the courses of the universities. They started giving place for Hindi, and such kind of relationship started developing between these two countries. Yeah, Devam, Quad is also a hurdle, but we'll be talking about this aspect when we'll talk about some of the regional groupings. We'll be discussing Quad because it is an important grouping at this point in time. So first, like we had discussed initially only, that we'll be first discussing some of our neighbors, then we'll move to some of the important countries, and in the last phase of our lectures, we'll be discussing these groupings as well. So we'll be covering everything. You need not be worried about this. Sazil, this bilateral ties, bi and lateral ties between two countries, the ties that develop between two countries is called as bilateral ties. Okay. So such things were happening. They wanted to take this to another level. So some more years were declared: Year of China-India Friendship and Cooperation, 2012. Year of Friendship and Cooperation. And these events were actually helping China more, because India was thinking that China is now ready to cooperate in most of the fields. So what India was doing, we were increasing the trade that was happening between India and China. A trade which was like, when we got independence, the trade was only about 3 billion US dollars. Now it is approaching towards $100 billion, right? But some of the events that happened last year, we definitely know that India is trying to shift focus from China and replace this with some other countries. And now recently we have started focusing on European Union to replace China as our biggest trading partner. So these events did not give any big benefit to India, but yeah, some of the benefits were there. Culturally, they also tried to make sure that India is also gaining some of the things, if not monetarily. So in 2015, there was an important event when China allowed Indians to visit the pilgrims. Yeah, of course, I can scroll down if you have missed something. So we were talking about 2015. In 2015, they opened the Nathula Pass in Sikkim. We had seen this pass. Nathula Pass for the pilgrims. So small things, small gestures to help India and China develop a good relationship. And this was the also year China said that we'll be celebrating India Tourism Year, so that Chinese people visit India and India gains monetarily, as well as the relationship improves. And simultaneously what they were doing, they were increasing their military presence. They were building roads nearing the borders of India. So in 2017, like we had discussed, skirmishes started at the Tri Junction. And we had discussed at the Tri Junction of we had issues. This is Northeast India. The problems brewed between these two nations, and since then we can say that the relationship has deteriorated a lot. After this thing, we had border issues, and just after celebrating the good relationship, they attacked our soldiers. Before that, we had problem of Wuhan virus or Chinese virus. Now they had made sure that such name is not used, and in fact the whole world is talking about the Indian variant, the Indian virus. It has become Indian virus, and we are not in a position to check such connotation. In fact, our own newspapers are writing this thing. They do not applying any brains that they are actually defaming India by doing so. And hereafter, if we talk about this relationship in 2018-19, after that, informal meetings between the Prime Minister of India and Premier of China, that is Xi Jinping, happened. And we tried to make sure that the relationship improves. Modi ji, of course, his personal report, he tried informal meets. Between Indian PM and Chinese Premier. They talked about improving relationships. A lot of photograph sessions. Divam, the questions like 2020 prelims about the position of glacier. Yeah, there was a question on the position of Siachen glacier. So these are easy questions. If you look at the maps, still, I'll talk about that. But first, let me focus on the things which are relevant to our lecture. Those are like, you'll see the atlas and you'll get the answer. Okay? We'll be coming to that again when we'll start talking about that thing. First, I want you to focus on this thing, whatever we are discussing. Improving this relationship. And in 2020, we celebrated 70 years of Indo-China relationship. Okay, We celebrated the Indo-China. Adi, formal is like both the countries declare. Formal meets means that both the countries have declared that they intend to meet for discussing their bilateral relations. But some of the time what happens that both the representatives are going to some other forum, like there can be a SARC meet or maybe SCO meeting where both the people met. Shanghai Cooperation Organization meet was there. So when they meet at such platforms and discuss some of the issues that are common to both, then we call these meetings as informal meetings. Formal meetings are declared one. The purpose is declared. Okay. Informal meeting, some other purpose was declared, but they meet and discuss some of the common things. So we call it as informal meetings. And 2020 was also declared as China-India Year of Cultural and People-to-People Exchanges. And they celebrated a lot. Both the countries celebrated, and after that what happened? Our soldiers and Chinese soldiers had skirmishes and we lost 20 of our soldiers, and some reports suggest that around 44 Chinese soldiers died in the skirmishes. So this is all the story that you need to know. Now will be noted down. Now we'll be looking at some other relationships. We'll be looking at the relationships that are important. Sazil, we celebrate, right? We celebrate these relationships in order to recognize that we are meeting diplomatically, and we tend to give a message that we want a cordial relationship with the country of interest. So we celebrate these things. This is a formal thing that many of the countries do. So these things, this is the historical part. This is some of the things that we had already discussed, but I wanted to make sure that you have a brief revision of the things before we move to the next part. We had discussed these things. Okay, now we'll be looking at some other aspects of this relationship. Of course, the most important aspect is the border, the challenges with respect to border. So we'll be discussing this. Note it down fast. So that we can move to the next thing. Okay. I hope everybody has noted this thing. So now we'll be looking at some of the specific relationship things, but the most important aspect is your borders. So we'll be starting with the border disputes. That was in news since last year, so you need to understand this part well. Rest of the things are easy. This is also easy, but you need to remember the names of the places, and you need to have an easy diagram. So, of course, all of you are aware that with respect to China, the dispute is in three sectors. We have western, middle sector, and eastern sector. Okay. I'll show this in diagram as well. Disputed area, disputed place, disputed sector. Okay. So western sector, eastern sector. Okay. So these are the three disputed areas, and many a times there can be a question in prelims where the length of disputed area. So of course we know that this is the biggest one. You don't need to remember the exact values, but you definitely need to remember in approximation. And here is an interesting thing. If you look at the disputed border, okay, if you look at these places, you definitely know that only one sector has a dispute of 2150 kilometers, right? The border area, if we talk about these two places, has a confusion that this Chinese claim that there is only 2000 kilometers of border between two countries. And of course, if you add all these things, we know that it is around more than 4000 kilometers in fact. Okay. So they say that there is border of only 2000 kilometers. Rest of the part, they claim that all the part is of China. India has captured those places. And India officially says, that we have 3488 kilometers of border which is disputed. Rest of the part, they say that all of the part is ours. India is not fair while giving the figures. I hope everyone has noted this thing. So note it fast. So we'll be drawing a diagram and we'll be looking at the sectors which are disputed. Okay. So first I want you to draw the diagram, a simple diagram which will give an impression of the areas, basically the areas which are disputed. Okay. This is western sector. This is middle sector. And they claim almost whole of Arunachal Pradesh. Eastern sector. 3 disputed areas. This is more or less resolved. This is not a problem area. So we have to, eastern sector, definitely it is easy that we know that they are claiming whole of Arunachal Pradesh. So we'll be focusing more on this area only because it has become a cause of concern more recently. So make it fast. This is not the diagram that we are looking forward to. We are more concerned about this area. I'll be looking at this area in detail. Why China is behind this area? Why they are looking to capture this area? Why Aksai Chin is so important for China? We'll be looking at that. So make it fast. I'll giving you 30 seconds. Just a rough diagram. Just make a rough diagram. Now let's draw the diagram that is more important that you need to remember. We'll be looking at this part is more important. And now I'll come to the question first. Let me show the area questions related to. We had seen this is somewhat the location of Siachen Glacier. And the question that came in prelims was related to Nubra. Okay. So whenever, of course, I hope that all of you have direction sense. Do not draw this thing. I'm making you understand for the question somebody asked that in prelims there was a question how to solve those questions. Okay. So I'm showing how to solve such questions. This is Siachen Glacier. Okay. And if you have direction sense, this is southeast, this is northeast, northwest. So the question was this. So of course, if you have seen the map, then you can easily give the direction with respect to these. So these are easy exercises that you need to practice. Nobody can teach such things. It is your responsibility to have a good look at Atlas and try to figure out what is the location. If let's say what is the location of Nubra with respect to Siachen, then you have to draw this. And if the question is what is the location of Siachen with respect to Nubra, then the things change. Now direction becomes this, means northwest. With respect to Nubra, it is northwest. Okay. So practice such questions at home. And these are very simple. If you try to have a good look at maps every now and then you'll easily solve such questions. But if you think that you'll be reading some book and you'll solve the question, it won't happen. अगर आप क्या है कि बिना मैप देखे हुए ये सॉल्व करने की कोशिश करेंगे तो आप में से किसी से भी बनने वाला नहीं है। तो मेक ए प्रैक्टिस ऑफ हैविंग गुड लुक एट मैप्स। ठीक है, मैप की प्रैक्टिस करनी चाहिए आपको। ऑलमोस्ट 10-12 क्वेश्चंस ईच ईयर वी हैव। It can be related to historical places, it can be related to geographical places. They talk about sanctuaries and all, they are also geographical points only, coordinates only. ठीक है, now we'll look at the place which is under dispute. So why the dispute actually started between India and China? China was constructing road every now and then, and India never ever protested against it until and unless they reached our place, they reached nearby us. But this time what India had done, here we have Karakoram Pass. Okay, so India did not had all weather connectivity. So what India tried to do, and we know that the line of actual control is somewhat here. This is Aksai Chin, this is line of actual control, LAC. ठीक है, and here we have Karakoram Pass. They were continuously constructing some of the roads, railways, everything. Now India decided to create a all-weather road there. So India what did? India constructed a all-weather road here, very nearby to the place. And what is the name of this road? Darbuk Shok Daulat Beg Oldie. I am focusing more on these areas only because in prelims also you can have question on these areas for next 2-3 years. क्योंकि ये न्यूज में हमेशा रहने वाला है, तो आपको ये एरिया मैप में अच्छे से जाके अटलस में देखना भी होगा. आई एम मेकिंग इट इजियर फॉर यू विद दीज डायग्राम्स, सिंपल डायग्राम्स, बट डू हैव अ गुड लुक एट दीज प्लेसेस इन अटलस. ठीक है, अब यहां जैसे ही बनाया तो चाइना वॉज अनहैप्पी. हम लोग कर रहे थे तो कर रहे थे, इंडिया को नहीं करना चाहिए था, राइट? तो दिस इज द रीजन दे स्टार्टेड डूइंग सम ऑफ द थिंग्स which were against Indian interest. तो अभी इन्होंने क्या किया? पहले तो प्रोटेस्ट किया कि इंडिया को बनाना नहीं चाहिए था, इंडिया इज डूइंग इट इन आवर टेरिटरी. इंडिया नहीं माना. ठीक है, अब इसी से आपका जो दौलत बेग ओल्डी है, दिस इज दौलत बेग ओल्डी एंड दीज आर दपसांग प्लेन्स. दिस इज Dapsang plains. You can have a question about location of these. ये क्या है? ये पॉइंट दौलत बेग ओल्डी. ठीक है, इसी के अराउंड जो प्लेन्स है इसे हम दपसांग प्लेन्स कहते हैं. ठीक है, सो दपसांग प्लेन्स पे चाइना स्टार्टेड चाइनीज मिलिट्री बेल्ट अप. इन्होंने क्या किया? मिलिट्री को वहां बढ़ा दिया. क्योंकि हम दौलत बेग ओल्डी तक आ रहे थे तो इसके दपसांग प्लेन्स में ही सम पार्ट ऑफ दैट, ऑफ कोर्स यू कैन सी ये लाइन क्रॉस कर रही है, ये बॉर्डरिंग एरिया है, तो देप्सांग प्लेन्स में मिलिट्री बिल्टअप हो गया. नाउ इंडिया स्टार्टेड डूइंग द सेम. हमने क्या है कि अपनी मिलिट्री को यहां बिठा दिया. दे केम इन टू ब्लॉज, मुक्का मारे एक दूसरे को. नाउ इनको लगा कि यहां पे इतना स्ट्रांग नहीं रह पाएंगे, तो समवॉट हेयर. अब यहां पे इन्होंने स्टार्ट कर दिया अराउंड पांगोंग सो लेक. तो लोकेशन भी आपको पूछ सकता है, आपको यही याद रखना है. अब पांगोंग सो में क्या है कि थोड़ा सा इधर उधर हुआ, उसके बाद क्या है कि समहाउ फिर गालवन वैली. तो ऑल दीज प्लेसेस बिकेम ए सोर्स ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. ठीक है, यहां पे चाइनीज मिलिट्री बिल्डअप बहुत सारी हो गई. तो आपको क्या है कि टॉप टू बॉटम ऐसे भी आ सकता है, दौलत बेग, ओल्डी, देप्सांग प्लेन, गालवन वैली, पांगोंग सो. ऊपर से नीचे कैसे है ये पूछा जा सकता है, तो इसको याद रखेंगे. तो दीज प्लेसेस क्रिएटेड प्रॉब्लम. अब इसी एरिया में व्हाई चाइना इज सो मच इंटरेस्टेड इन दीज प्लेसेस, आपको यह भी समझना जरूरी है कि व्हाई चाइना इज फोकसिंग ऑन दीज प्लेसेस. बिकॉज देयर आर चाइनीज हाईवेज नियर बाय. और वो उसके लिए क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है? दो रिबेलियस एरियाज को कनेक्ट करता है वो, उइघुर प्रोविंस ऑफ चाइना and the Tibet region. Both these regions are against the Chinese principles. They have different culture from most of the population of China. Uyghur is an area where there is dominantly Muslim population, and they are creating, Chinese are creating problem for that population, so they have separatist tendency. अब यहां से क्या है, इनका एक रोड है. चाइना हैज बिल्ट ए रोड. ओके, यहां पे चाइनीज लोगों ने क्या किया है, रोड बनाया हुआ है. ठीक है, सो दिस रोड इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर चाइना. They are very, very concerned about this area. This is National Highway 219 of China. And this region is Uyghur province of China, and this goes to Tibet. So they are concerned about this area, the Uyghur province and Tibet. And very often you'll see in news that there are many reports that Chinese are experimenting on Uyghur Muslims. They are forced to live in concentration camps, and Chinese has a thriving organ business. They kill these Uyghur Muslims and sell their body parts. If somebody's liver fails, maybe in India it will require 40 lakhs to have a transplant. But Uyghur province is famous for medical tourism. If somebody is visiting that place, maybe you'll get a new liver for 7-8 lakhs only. And that too without any delay. Within 24 hours, they'll kill somebody and get the liver. The lives are really cheap in Uyghur. There were so many reports about this thing. Which spelling you are not able to understand, Suman? कौन सा आपको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है? UYGHUR, उइघुर. तिब्बत की स्पेलिंग तो इजी है. गालवन वैली GALWN, Depsang DPSANG, पांगोंग सो PANGONG TSO। ये आप मैप पे देखेंगी तब भी मिल जाएगा, और अगर आप न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ती हैं तो आपने देखा होगा इन सबको। ठीक है। सो yeah, Divam, it is always in news. They are very they have appealed to rest of the world, but of course you know that China is a dominant country in the world scenario, and nobody questions about its internal affairs, only because probably it will start asking about these things also. Some of the internal matters related to India as well. Make it fast, make it fast. We have to see many things. We'll try to complete this today only. We have to complete this thing. Today only. Make it fast. If you're done, let me know. Pangang so Ravi, yes. So this is the main area. If you talk about Uttarakhand area, there was a place called Niang Jidang. Okay, Asu, very good. All of you have done this thing. So now, I hope you understand. If the questions related to this area comes in prelims, you can deal, and while writing in mains, of course, you can, if you practice well, you can easily draw this diagram. So we were talking about the border disputes. So this is an area which is the major concern for India, and while talking about Uttarakhand, there were small skirmishes over places called Niang Jidang, and that was, if we talk about Uttarakhand, the problem is like what? The bordering areas have mountains. Okay? We have mountains. So China says this is like Chinese claim. And this is India's claim. But not much concern, as these places are inhospitable. And China has direct control over these places. These are not disturbed areas. China even cannot reach many of the places here. So we both are not fighting over this area. Arunachal Pradesh, eastern sector, the township of Tawang. This is a Buddhist region. Okay? This is a Buddhist place, though the claims are full. If you talk about Chinese claim, they claim whole area. Okay? Chinese claim all of Arunachal. But specifically the skirmishes Why these started? Because till 1954, our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was convinced that Chinese won't come to blows with India. क्यों ऐसा सोचते थे वो? क्योंकि बहुत सारी मीट्स में इंडिया चाइना मिलते रहते थे, तो उनको लगता था कि चाइना कुछ भी नहीं करने वाला है इंडिया के अगेंस्ट, तो इसलिए यहां बॉर्डर नहीं किया गया था. नो बॉर्डर फेंसेस वेयर देयर. nor 1954 तक कुछ भी नहीं किया गया. These places were left like this only. There was cultural exchange. Both the people of both the places visited. This was a Buddhist place. Monastery is there. So it was like this only. And India believed that China won't create any trouble because Tibet is part of China. They are clear with this, and India has supported them. India has helped them to be recognized as a nation. But in 1955, intelligence suggested that China can capture Tawang. So India sent military and posted them at the border. And hereafter, we all know that in 1962, we had to fight from the both fronts. In fact, China had captured most of Arunachal. And we had to suffer in a great deal. Now, border dispute is not limited to this area only. Like we had talked about China occupied Kashmir. So there we talked about this western region, these places. But border area is beyond this also. Okay? What China is doing, there is a project CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that is being, it passes through the Gilgit-Baltistan area. I hope everybody has written this as well. Now we are talking about China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It also passes through Indian territory, the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan. So of course, India is against this project as well because we have claims over this. And also this can be a threat to India. It can be a threat to India as it is bordering India. And both India and China are antagonistic to India. So what they can do? They can, of course, increase the military build and can harm India. So again, you need to draw this map. We'll be looking at the map. And we're looking at the area where the CPEC is there. As yesterday we had seen, this area is China occupied Kashmir. This is Azad Kashmir. This is Gilgit Baltistan. These places, of course, you know, yesterday also. No, Mani, we do not have any control over Tibet, though we had supported the Dalai Lama when he fled China, fled Tibet. But of course, we are not having any control over the territory of Tibet. Whatever area is, it belongs to India, and we had clearly demarcated these regions. Okay, so now we are talking about this. So if we talk about this area, this project starts from China, okay? And through Gilgit-Baltistan, it moves to an area which actually passes through the border of India. So we can be a threat. So of course they have made a base here. This is Gilgit-Baltistan. And beyond this also in somewhere here, there is a place called Kasgar. It starts from there. But that place is not of much of our concern. We are more concerned about some of the areas which are very nearby us. Okay? The places which are very nearby us, like Islamabad, Lahore. And it goes to up to Gwadar port, that is being developed with the help of Chinese funding. Okay? And this is, we'll be discussing shortly this thing as well, when we'll be discussing the string of pearls. And you must have heard that in the areas where CPEC is there, money, we have ITBP there, of course. We have that to protect the borders. But ITBP is not important here. You need to focus on the things that I am discussing. Okay, so this borders India. And we can see presence of Chinese forces here. So India is dead against this project. It belongs to India, so of course it is one of the border issues. This is directly China occupied Kashmir. We have direct concerns about this place. We have claims over this. But it was gifted by Pakistan to China, and United Nations has given its verdict about this place. So we can't do much about it. So while writing the answers, of course, what you can do, you can also sew the two areas together and you can write some of the things. You can do that. But to have more clarity in our discussions, I have drawn this. And always level your diagrams. Never leave your diagrams like for the teacher to guess. It is very, very important whenever you are drawing a diagram, write India, Pakistan. Leveling is important. It is one of the good practices. And any of the teachers will admire this thing whenever he is checking your paper. Okay? So this is also a cause of concern between two countries. India had protested, but China did not heed to. Pakistan also did not listen to when we were suggesting that China is not going to treat them well. And of course, we know what is happening. The Pakistani population is always treated as slaves in these areas, wherever the Chinese are making this thing, because they have invested a lot of money. So they treat them really bad. So this is related to some of the border relationship between these two countries. You definitely need to mention that India has claims over Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and hence protesting against Chinese presence. Make it fast. Write this statement. So in border issue, always most of the books you'll see that they do not show this CPEC as a border dispute, but that is a wrong approach, because of course it is a border that India shares with the neighborhood, so it should be written in this only amongst the border disputes. So now we'll be moving to some other concerns. So let's have a look at some of the regular points, and then after again we'll go to some of the important points. But drawing again and again could have, I hope most of you must have improved your drawing skills as we are drawing so many diagrams. And it is also important that you do. Make sure that you are practicing these. It will make things quite easy for you. Let's have a look at the political and diplomatic relations. The overall nature of relationship between, though we have discussed a lot, but this specifically is very important, because there is a very interesting phenomena happening in this relationship. Most of the countries, if you'll see, whenever the representatives are coming to some from other country to India, visiting India, they'll be meeting some of the important people, or maybe the opposition party, and some of the times they try to meet the chief ministers as well. They can belong to some of the regional parties. But since inception of the diplomacy between India and China, we have seen a very interesting phenomena that whichever party becomes important and have national reckoning in India, China establishes a direct relationship with that political party. And they try to influence the ideology of those political parties. And many a times we have seen that even in important issues, as China directly contacts some of the political parties, these people behave irrationally. We have seen in Galwan Valley case as well, many of the political parties started saying negative things about a issue which required all the political parties to come together and condemn China. Instead, what these political parties started doing, they started condemning the government. in times of emergency, it is very, very important that all the political parties should come together. Instead of blame games, they should come together and attack the country which is harming our territorial boundaries. But how they have managed, we'll see. The political and diplomatic relations. अभी बाकी कंट्रीज क्या करते हैं, जब भी इंडिया आएंगे, विल सी दैट या तो वो मोदी जी से मिलेंगे या फिर वो जाके क्या है कि दिल मीट मनमोहन सिंह जी और सोनिया गांधी. But if you look at Chinese people, whenever their diplomats are visiting India, or in fact the ambassadors who are staying here, they visit many political parties. They try to create personal relations with the leaders of some of the political parties which are important in India. China has a policy of developing direct relationship with political party of countries. They have direct contributions and relationships with 9 political parties in India. Of course, they favor communist. Yeah, Divam, we are doing this thing. Jaishankar ji is doing this thing only because China has increased the military presence lately. Even though the whole of the world is grappling with the problem of COVID-19, China is building military at the borders. And so our diplomats had mentioned, our ministers have mentioned many a times that China is becoming a bigger problem. Okay. So what they are doing? So the communist parties you'll always see. In fact, are evidences that some of the political funding is also happening to some of the parties. So they never speak ill about China, even though they attack India. So they have direct contact with BJP, direct contact with Congress, direct contact with some of the communist parties, with some of the regional parties as well. So this thing helps them to initiate some of the public perception as well. This relationship, what it does? Yeah, Yati, they do that. And in fact, some of the politicians of our country are idiots. Though I should not use such a term, but it warrants it, because it's very, if you look at some of the Western countries, if the country is in grave danger, then they'll come to support the incumbent government. Maybe after the situation improves, then after they attack their governments. But in India, what happens? Anything happens. Even India is attacked, the political parties will attack the present government. And this is with all the parties. It is not, I'm not talking about the present government and present opposition. When the present government was in opposition, they were always opposing all the things. So India is a country where opposition means opposition. They know only one thing. अभी जो अपोजिशन में रहेगा वो सिर्फ अपोज करेगा. अच्छी चीज हो रही हो, बुरी चीज हो रही हो, अपोज ही करना है, अच्छी बातें करनी ही नहीं है. तो दिस इज अ प्रॉब्लम विथ इंडिया. So this point, of course, do mention, and you need to know this thing that China is doing something like that. I hope everybody has noted this thing. Now let's have a look at the economic ties that these two countries are having. Of course, we all of you know that India is at loss. We are at trade deficit. China is making lot of money from Indian market. And recently, what India has done, we have banned many of the organizations only to ensure that at least China feels the heat. Okay. So if we talk about these two countries are almost 20% of the total GDP of the world. So it's a huge volume. If we could have, these two countries could have established good relationship, then probably the Western countries could have lost their relevance. But China is such a rogue nation that it doesn't care. It thinks that it can itself become 20% or more than that in coming time. So it doesn't need any country. And if we talk about the trade between these two, is approaching $100 billion. 92 to 94 billion was already there before this Wuhan virus or Chinese virus struck us. Before that, of course, we had reached a point where our relationship, this trade volume could have crossed 100 billion. Okay. So, of course, we can say that if the relationship is like this, but the problem is what? This trade is more beneficial to China. So we are not purchasing many things. China is not getting many things from India, but we are very much dependent on China. And it is taking the advantage of this situation only. They know that India is dependent. Trade between these two is approaching US $100 billion. This is the second point. And the third one is it is more advantageous for China having this relationship. Okay. And more recently, what has happened? After Galwan Valley clash, India is looking forward to other nations to reduce its dependence on China. So of course in future we can say that this 100 billion will not be there, right? Will not be reaching this 100 billion target. India is trying to move away from China since this Galwan Valley clashes happened. India has changed its policy. So note it down. Now we'll look at some of the cultural aspects that you already know. The Buddhist culture and all. Of course, you are aware. But these aspects are minor aspects when it comes to the relationship between India and China. Yeah, we have cancelled this thing. Huawei was the telecom company from China which was expected to take care of the 5G trials in India, but it were not given permission. And most of the Quad nations, including the first country to deny this thing was Canada. Hereafter, Australia denied it, India denied it. And of course, US is not interested in giving any kind of business to China at this point in time. But Biden is not as much vocal as Trump. Biden is not as much vocal. So probably China is thinking that they can treat the world as they want. So cultural relations, if we talk about this thing, the common thing is Buddhism, in fact, the martial art Kung Fu, which is very famous in China, it was an Indian man who had taught this thing there. If we talk about some other cultural aspect, Bollywood movies are famous in China, are liked in China. And India and China has in fact signed an agreement to promote Bollywood in China. And of course, some of the Chinese actors were equally popular. Like I had Subham told you earlier as well, you were the one who had asked this question earlier as well, and I had told that most of the northern China, they are like, they believe in animist religion. Okay? They are like, they worship the forces of God. Some part is like they believe in Semitism. Some part, of course, they are Uyghur Muslims, so they follow Islam. And of course, whole of Tibet is following Buddhism. So it is like mix of religions. Okay, so this is the cultural relationship. And one more interesting point is that yoga is popular in China. So there are many points of convergence. Money, no. Can Indian government directly deny all trade treaties? No, of course. If we want, we can. But Indian government will not do that. because in many of the aspects we are still dependent on China, and the trade deals will hit our private sector, and maybe there will be a lot more unemployment. If you are reading the newspapers continuously, you know that in COVID situation, in the month of April only, there was a report that almost 24 lakh people who were regularly salaried lost their job in 1 month in this COVID situation when the lockdown happened. So it is very, very important that India do not take any rash decisions. The government will never ever do that, okay? Will not do that. So yoga is also important. In fact, if we talk about the Chinese policy towards yoga, they were the people who had actually supported India when we wanted yoga to be declared as an international yoga day. We wanted that. So now we'll look at some other aspect of this relationship. The military cooperation. We can talk about military cooperation. That is not happening. We are fighting, in fact, but some of the exercises and all, instead of cooperation, let's keep it like military aspect. So the military aspect, we have hand-in-hand exercise. Basically, this exercise is against terrorism, insurgency operations. Okay. It is an annual event where the military of the both countries try to practice some of the things that can help them, can help with anti-terrorist operations. And jointly training Afghan counterparts. India is helping the Afghan military. So is China. China is also having. Yeah, Devam, that is science and technology. Okay, military aspect. And skirmishes and the wrong things, border disputes, of course you can mention. Now we'll look at, if we look at some other aspects like education, people contact, some small educational aspect. Almost 20,000 Indian students are taking education in China each year. What more? Chinese students are awarded scholarship for learning Hindi by India. So like we had discussed, these are minor things that you can mention while talking about this relationship. Of course, we have talks of cooperating in the field of science and technology, in the field of IT, information technology, but that's not happening much. Now, some of the threats related to ocean, the Indian Ocean. This is very, very important. We'll be looking at that. You must have heard of a string of pearls. You must have heard of one belt, one road initiatives. So these are important aspects that can appear in any stage of the exam. You can have questions in prelims, you can have question in mains. And of course, these aspects every now and then appear in interviews as well. So it is important for all the three stages, and it stays in news for most of the years. So whichever year you are going to give the paper, it is going to remain important. A string of pearls, one belt, one road. So some of the things related to Indian Ocean we'll be looking at. Specifically, we'll be focusing on Indian Ocean only because that is the area that concerns us. So the very first aspect, yeah, the Silk Route is like an ancient Silk Route. Okay, Silk Route is an ancient concept. We'll be talking about that, but first let me start with resource exploitation. Okay, what China wants, it wants Indian cooperation in exploiting the resources which are in the Indian Ocean. China wants India's cooperation for deep sea mining. India was the first country which has got permission from International Seabed Authority, from International Seabed Authority to explore deep sea resources. Okay, so in 1982, this International Seabed Authority gave India an area. They said that in this area, India can explore the resources, the deep sea resources. And in 1987, it was also given permission that now you can start with this. Okay. So India was the first country. So China knows that India has got permission and it has an area as well where they can do it. And China is even aware that if it comes to processing the things, India do have technology. But India is not in a position to extract something from within. अभी 1-2 किलोमीटर नीचे है ओशन में तो इंडिया इजिली नहीं निकाल पा रहा है. इवन व्हेन वी वर ट्राइंग टू एक्सट्रैक्ट सम ऑफ द सैंपल्स फ्रॉम देयर वी फेल्ड मेनी अ टाइम्स. सो चाइना ऑफर्ड अस a deal that I'll help you by with extracting, you help me by finding those areas where there are deep sea minerals, right? So but India is not very willing. We are still in talks, but we are not doing much. Okay, so whenever this aspect appears in news, you need to follow it. Okay, now I'll come to the aspects that I were talking about. The string of pearls. This is also related to the ocean. So this is point number B in the same ocean. This was point number A. This was A. This is B. A string of pearls. I hope some of you must have heard of this thing. The string of pearls is a theory which suggests that China is trying to encircle India by creating ports at different locations. Okay. China wants to have control over the Indian Ocean, and it wants to nullify the influence that India have over this ocean. So we'll be looking at the map, why it is said so and why China is actually doing this thing. So try to draw the map. This is your Africa. We don't need a whole of it. We need just part of it. So this is the area of our interest. Okay, we have this area. This part is Eurasia. This is China. And of course, this is India. Now, if we talk about the Chinese presence, the string of pearls. I want you to draw this map so that you can understand it. Here we have Gwadar Port. We also know that China has constructed some of the ports in places like here Chittagong Port, Sitwe, These are the areas with red, whatever I am showing. China has funded these places. Very close, Cocos Island, part of Myanmar, it has Chinese presence. A naval base is there. We have Mombasa in Kenya. Here somewhere Djibouti. We have Chinese presence. We have seen that it is in talks with Oman as well. So it wants to be here as well. Okay. Some of these are already in presence, some of these are not. But it has managed to somehow create. This is Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. Hambantota port. Of course, they were not happy with the ways China was behaving. So they chose to deny them the opportunity. In Maldives also, they had investment, but recently they also denied. But as string of pearls concept, these all places are valid. But if we look at these places only, then you can say that it is a design to bound India. Okay? If we look at all this design, okay, of course, it appears that China is trying to encircle India, right? We can say that because India is encircled. China has influence to our neighboring nations, and now what it looks like, it is influencing the ocean as well. But now we have to see that China is not developing all these places only. We have to look beyond this area as well. Okay? So you must be aware that this is a Strait of Malacca. So the strait is very, very important because it deals with second highest trading route of the world. And this place, of course, is also important for trade. And how we can see that the China has this design to control the trade, not to contain India. It is a byproduct of the Chinese design that India is also being contained. But the focus of when it started with this string of pearls was not India. The main concern was to have control over all the places from where the trade of the world is happening, so that it can threaten the world if they are not ready to listen to what China has to say. So what it did, it has developed many ports in this region as well, Southeast Asia. So what it has done, it has created Southeast Asia drilling project here. Even if it is not important, they are doing this thing. Even if they think that it will not bring any money. DJIBOUTI. 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 Okay. So Southeast Asia drilling project is there. It has created an island, airport, Han Island airport. So we have to see this thing, and this is also part of this string of pearls. Okay, so basically it wants to control this Strait of Malacca and this area from where a lot of trade is happening. And basically all these are, what these are? They are oil routes. And second busiest trade route. And we can say that this string of pearls is more meant to have control over these trade routes. And a byproduct of this design is containment of India via a string of pearls. And also with this, it can negate the presence of some of the centers, some of the places developed by US to watch over South Asia and the resources of Indian Ocean. Okay, so whenever there is a question, whenever we have some issue related to this, there is a question about string of pearls, you always have to make sure that make it, then we'll write some of the things. Just draw this diagram, it is important. And whenever you are drawing such diagrams where a lot of places are there, always use black and blue pens so that at least you can differentiate. Like in black with blue pen, you can draw this and you can write some of the names. Because you'll not have freedom to use many colors, but with two colors also, you can make sure that you are representing the things well. Oman. Below Gwadar port is Oman, O-M-A-N. So draw it fast. So the important aspect is that it has no name because it is not yet developed for the purpose of this. There were proposal and they wanted to develop, but this is the design. So I have mentioned that the name of the party is not important. They are all, the names I have mentioned was part of their design. Even in Maldives, the project was scrapped and was given to some of the company of India, and they have changed the island as well. So these things keep on changing. You need not focus on the name of the ports. Focus on the areas where it is being developed. Hambantota, H-A-M-B-A-N-T-O-T-A, Hambantota, Hambantota port. So do it fast, 30-40 more seconds. Try to complete this thing. We have to discuss some more things about this relationship, some more aspects. हाँ शिवम, वही है. So I hope everybody is done with this thing. Okay. So we are moving ahead. Yeah, done. So we'll write some of the things about this. with the string of pearls, China wants to have control over major trade route, and it can also contain India. The Chinese were in fact demanding that this ocean shouldn't be called as Indian Ocean. It should not be called after India. They were not happy with that. They appealed for this thing, but nobody cared about this thing. Nobody gave thumbs up to China. So this aspect is important. It wants to have control over major trade route. And its byproduct is that India is being contained. So it is a win-win situation for China. Now, the same aspect with these ports when we are talking about, as it has developed this thing. Already it has developed Belt and Road, was an outcome of the string of pearls only. What it did, it extended the same thing and called it as Belt and Road Initiative. It designed actually two programs. It is on land, it wants to develop the Silk Road Economic Belt. It calls it as Silk Road Economic Belt. And in ocean, it is called as 21st century Maritime Silk Road. Okay, so ancient Silk Road was there, which passed through some parts of India as well, and majority of the Silk Road was under the control of China. These were the people who were trading in silk initially. So now we are talking about Belt and Road Initiative. It has also part of the ocean. Ocean is important. It is sometimes called as the New Silk Road. It has two elements, land plus ocean. It has two elements, land and ocean. The project that is over land is Silk Road Economic Belt. And this one over ocean is 21st century Maritime Silk Route. And it is a cause of concern for India. Silk Road Economic Belt, 21st century Maritime Silk Route. Okay. So land and ocean is involved. And why India is concerned about this thing? Because India was actually a power in ocean in the ancient years. We had relationship with many of the nations. And India also wanted to design something like that. so that we can establish the old roots. We can utilize our blue economy policy, and we can invite investment from some of the countries, and we can also invest in some other countries. But with this project, what China has started, it has started investing heavily in some of the neighboring countries of ours. And as we have seen that many of the countries, because of this funding only, are going with China and are not showing favor to us, it is a cause of concern for India. And with China being more and more aggressive against India at this point in time, it is very, very important that our neighbors do not join that. But unfortunately, most of our neighbors have joined this. Now we'll have a look at the diagram as well, from where to where it is connecting. In fact, this is a program which has covered almost whole of Eurasia plus Indian Ocean region. So it is in a way capturing whole of this part of the continent by using this thing. So we'll be drawing a diagram. So all of you know this is Africa is easy to make. I'm doing it slowly so that you can learn how to draw the diagrams. So this is a place from where you can start, and it makes pretty easy to make the map if you can draw this part. From here, this is easy. And you have to dip a little here. The land is like this. And we have, this is like this. So whole of Eurasia. This part is easy to make. If you'll make Africa with the help of Africa, you can go on and you can draw this part. So basically, like we had seen a string of pearls, most of the places remain same. But in its design, it gives a special importance to Kolkata as well. It wants India to join this initiative. Some of our ports are important as per its design, but we haven't accepted. But I'm drawing a map which will show that what is Chinese design. Okay? So it wants to connect many of the places. I'm not writing most of the names in this diagram only because they are similar to what we have seen in a string of pearls. Okay. So the same places like we had discussed is part of this design as well. Some of the important places they want to connect from China to rest of the world. This is the oceanic route we are looking at. I'll not be writing those names that are already there. It goes further. In China, this place is Guangzhou. And this one is Guangzhou. You can even show only one of these places. It is not important that you try to show all the places. So in a way, they'll be connecting many more places as well, but all the places are not important. This is somewhat the design of 21st century maritime Silk Road. So this is over land. As you must be aware that it has invested heavily in some of the Western countries. It is supplying some of the military goods to some of the countries. It is providing funding to develop pipelines for some countries. And it has also given loans to some of the countries of West. And now the Western countries are very, very dependent on Chinese funding. Many of these countries have become dependent. So what it is doing, it is convincing them that they allow them to develop some of the places and become part of One Belt and One Road initiative. Okay, so this is your Kasgar, the place from where CPEC starts. This is Beijing. This is Xi'an. Somewhere here we have Moscow, right? So all these places, in its design, we have all these places. In fact, they have plans to reach up to Germany, Frankfurt, and most part of Germany. They have design of reaching here and connected to, getting connected to Istanbul, in Turkey, Greece, of course, Greece, and whatnot. But some of the places only you can show, because you'll not have enough time to show all the places. So what it wants to connect all these places. And the connectivity, it also wants that these will be connected to all the ports. And in turn, the whole of this continental land mass will be connected. It is the design of China. And you'll be amazed to know that they have already invested $400 billion without any expectation. And they are planning to invest. Piyush, you need to check, all the people are not getting the lecture. Is it stopping for all of you? Am I audible and visible to all of you? Is there any interruption? Okay, so there is no problem. Everything is fine. It stopped only for a few seconds, so not a big deal. So like I said, whenever you are drawing a diagram, make sure that you are mentioning the areas. So it is a design which can connect whole of this Eurasia and Africa. Yeah, Xiang or Xian. Some of the books Xian, some of the books Xiang. Okay. So draw it fast. Make it fast. We'll be discussing some more aspects. At least we'll try to finish it. China aspect we need to finish. So everybody has drawn this thing. These places I haven't mentioned the name, but you need to make sure that you'll write the name that we had seen in a string of pearls. Okay? So everybody is done with this? Not much, Asu. Not many of the topics are left in China. We have done almost everything with respect to China. We'll be talking about this aspect only a little. And we'll be looking at how it has behaved in some of the groupings. So not much is left in China. Okay, Yati, very good if you have drawn. So let's move to some of the facts that I was talking about. You need to note down these facts. With this initiative, China wants to have economic influence over the countries of this region. China has already invested more than गुआंझाओ लिखा हुआ है GUANGZOHOU. This is ZHOU. Guangzhou. This is the name of the place. Note it fast. GUANZHOU. Okay. And China plans to invest around गुआंझाओ के ऊपर क्वांझाओ QUANZHOU. ठीक है. China will invest US dollars 20 trillion by 2030 in this project. But this was just a plan. Saritha, above Guangzhou, it was Quanzhou, QUANZHOU. So it has plans of investing this much, but if you are following the newspapers, you must have encountered a news that this project is actually backfiring and China is at heavy losses. Many of the countries who had initially signed this project are not willing to be part of that because they are under constant fear that China will have control over these countries economically and these countries will lose their sovereignty because China has done this thing with some of the African countries. It invested heavily in these countries and gave some period of time to return back the investment. But those countries were like what? They are very, very poor and they can never ever pay it back. So now China is virtually having control over their economies. So most of the countries were averse to the idea of getting involved with China in any of these investment projects which will require China to invest in their countries. Okay. So One Belt, One Road initiative, we are clear. And a minor aspect, not much important, China's role in some of the groupings. China's stand with respect to India in forums. In some of the forums like United Nations, okay. Yeah, Adi, very correct. This was in news. It is doing like that only. That it doesn't want the neighbors to go for some the countries like USA and all. It always pressurizes others to come to it, and then it will give loan, and the country will not be in a position to give it back, and then it will start dictating the policies of that country. China always tries to block India from joining some of the multilateral forums. Or groups. Okay, if China is there in some group and India tries to that group, like for example, we have seen what it has done to our claims over United Nations Security Council, or for that matter, nuclear supplier group. This nuclear supplier group is a group of countries which has the capability of producing nuclear fissile material, and these countries are allowed to provide it to other countries for civilian purposes. If some country is willing to use nuclear material for civilian purposes like electricity generation and all, these countries can provide it. But whenever India is trying to join such groups, when India talks about getting this United Nations Security Council permanent membership, China is the country which doesn't ever support India. So of course, China is not a good neighbor to India. It has never ever helped us. In fact, what it does, it has voted against India. It votes against India in occasions where India demands to ban terrorist groups based in Pakistan. ठीक है? In many of the occasions, it doesn't do that. Yeah, of course, Ravi, in many of the groupings, examples are many. You can use any of those. You want to write this, you can write this. You want to write anything else, you can do that as well. So what it is doing, it uses its veto power in these organizations and never allows India to become a major player. It doesn't want India to be seen as a major player in these areas. So it always tries to, but India is largely dependent on China in many of the factors. And in fact, if you'll see, the Chinese investors have major stake in many of the companies that are based in India. Many of the services like we are using in India, for that matter, Zomato, Paytm, or any of those, they have Chinese investment. They were started by Indian people only, but to expand their business, they had Chinese investment. So whatever profit they are making, of course, China's economy is going to benefit out of that. So India will have to look for some other avenues to engage China in a positive way, because we cannot go against completely our neighbor. We'll have to make sure it is a rogue neighbor, of course, but it is important that we have some good relationship with China in near future, so that we do not face any kind of difficulties like we have seen. But as recently you can see that China is building up military presence in our neighborhood. So this thing is going to stay in news. The map of those areas like we have seen from Galwan Valley to Pangang So and all, you need to have a good look at those things. And also beyond that, some of the mountains that stay in news, Finger 3, Finger 2, Finger 4. So these are some of the peaks where from where Indian soldiers or the Chinese soldiers were having a watch at each other. So maybe their location will not be asked, because they are just few peaks, smaller ones, that are militarily important but not important with respect to physical features. But you need to know where they exist. You can find it over map whenever some of the places are coming in news. It is very, very important that you have a look at it over Atlas. And if you cannot find those places over Atlas, you need to make sure that you are finding them over Google Maps. Okay? Yeah, Protyus, this is a problem. China is always against us because it doesn't want any of its neighbors to have any aspirations of becoming a big player. It wants to be big brother of Asia. In fact, if we look at its design, it wants to be big brother of whole world at this point in time. And barring America, none of the countries are in a position to stop it. And India is also having aspirations. We are a big player. Though we respect its presence, we never tried to disturb China. But of course, it is not happy with the progress that India has made since last so many years after our independence. And it knew that it is a democratic country. And for democracies, it is rather very tough to develop in a way India has done. India has shown to the world. Because even if somebody is going to do good work, will have opposition. But China, what it does, if there is opposition, it will quell the opposition. It will kill the people. And the biggest example is Tiananmen Square incident, when the students from China were demanding restoration of democracy and more rights to the people of China. they killed their own younger generation. They killed them using tanks that India desists from even using against our neighbors, some of the non-state actors. We don't use tank to kill these mice or insurgents, but China did that with their common population. So people do not have rights in China. They are suffering in China, but still they cannot do anything. And neither any other country can do much, because China is an opaque country which doesn't allow others to visit. In fact, there was a situation when prima facie Suman, of course, I teach at many places. I teach at many places. So with respect to China, we are done, and tomorrow we'll be looking at some other relationship with respect to some of the nations which are important from the perspective of UPSC. We have covered almost all the neighbors which are important. We haven't talked about Maldives as such, but we'll be talking about Maldives tomorrow, and we'll be looking at other things as well. ठीक है, तो आप लोग अभी भी रिवीजन करिएगा, डायग्राम बनाइए, पढ़ाई कीजिए, and in case आपको कोई दिक्कत आती है, you have any kind of difficulty, feel free to ask questions. Asu, there are many countries with which we have to see the relationship. I cannot tell you the exact numbers. Each year, some of the countries become irrelevant, some become more relevant. So we'll be discussing many more. Okay? We'll be looking at many more. US, USSR, many of the European countries, many of the countries from Central Asia which are important. Some of the countries with whom we have established new relationship. Subham, you want to have a look at diagram again? Why didn't you draw it at that point in time? What's happening? Which diagram you wanted? Exactly this one. String of pearls or okay, your mobile was stopped. So you need to draw this diagram, not an issue. I think there is some problem with the board as well. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so have a look at this diagram, draw it, and do revise these things. Do not leave it, okay? Else it will become a burden to all of you. It is very, very important that you keep looking at the things, whatever we discuss the same day, and the way I had taught you how to revise the things. So I'll be stopping this lecture here only. And I hope that you have understood most of the things. And Devam, of course, I'll be doing that, but I do not have recorded lectures as such. Yes, Aina. Adi, I have written, right? United Nations Security Council, I had written that. So that was the matter. So now it's the time is over for the lectures. I want you to have your lunch. Greece. I have written Greece, Subham. So note it down. And maybe you can do it later as well. So I'm done with the class. Have your lunch. Take some rest. And then study. Revise as much as possible. Okay. So I'll meet you tomorrow, probably at the same time, and we'll be discussing the things which are left in the syllabus. Have a nice time. Thank you.